All right, good morning, everyone. I am on the move again, but I thought I would talk you guys through your tax allowances for this current tax year. It's coming to an end. The new tax year starts on April the 6th. So I'm going to be running through all of your allowances, which will include your personal your personal allowance for your income. I'll be going through your ISA allowances, CGT, dividend allowance, marriage allowance, and also your personal savings allowance. But I've just unplugged the car. I'm on my way to record a podcast. This is going to be part of my book PR. I'm going to take you along with me, but I have to get there. I've got about an hour and a half to go. So yeah, let's go. All right, so let's just do a quick recap. The tax year runs between April the 5th and April the 6th every single year, which means that as of the time of recording this video on March 3rd, we have a little over a month before the new tax year begins and all of the tax allowances essentially reset. Now, the first allowance I'm going to go through with you is your personal allowance. And this is pretty straightforward if you are employed, working for a business and you're earning money. You're likely going to use this, but your personal allowance is $12,570. This is the amount that you can earn before you begin to pay tax on your remaining income. So like I've already said, if you are in an employed role, you're probably using the maximum of your $12,570. You may not be using your full maximum if you are either part-time maybe, or if you are self-employed, running your own ship, and you're kind of limiting the amount of money that you take from your business. Now, after you've made more than $12,570, you start to pay tax at your nominal rate. So your basic rate taxpayer rate is 20%, your higher rate is 40%, your additional rate is 45%. And there is something very interesting that happens with your personal allowance when you get to the bracket of earning in the 45% additional rate taxpayers bracket. And that is that you start to lose your personal allowance. So that $12,570, you start to lose it the minute you start earning over £100,000. Now, as a function, what happens is for every £2 that you earn over 100,000, you start to lose £1 of your personal allowance. And what that essentially means is that for most people who are earning in the six-figure range, they can automatically be pushed into from a 40-45% bracket into a 50-55, maybe even 60% tax bracket. If you fall within that arena, it's really, really important that you take advice, maybe from your accountant. You can do clever things like salary sacrifice to help you bring yourself back down into the realm where you're not going to lose your personal allowance, but you do need to speak to a professional for that. All right, so just arrived at the place where I'm recording a podcast with a guy called Andy Rowe, and this is going to be for publication, well, PR of the book, essentially. So never met Andy before, so it'll be interesting to see how this basically goes. I don't have a brief just yet, but we're going to have a conversation, see what happens. All right, so just finished with the podcast at Andy's. I'm now going to head back to the car. I need to go into central London. So next thing we're going to talk about, ISA allowances. So we've spoken about this a lot on the channel, but let's have a little bit of an overview. So every single tax year, again, between April the 5th and April the 6th, your ISA allowance is £20,000. And this essentially allows you to save into a cash ISA or invest into a stocks and shares ISA £20,000. Now, the saying, if you don't use it, you lose it, is 100% true, because your ISA allowance isn't one that you can carry forward. So in other words, if you don't use your full allowance this current tax year, before the new one starts, you can't carry over what is left from this year into the new one. So really the advice here is that if you have money lying around and you have the ability to max out your £20,000, max out your £20,000. Even if you haven't got enough to max out your full amount, you should put in as much as you can into your ISA for this current tax year before the new one starts on April the 6th. Obviously, you have lifetime ISAs, which is for, first-time buyers or for those who are under 40 looking to save for retirement. Actually, under 40, you have to be under 40 to open a lifetime ISA. That lifetime ISA allowance is £4,000 and is inclusive of your overall £20,000 allowance. So just a point of reference for you to be aware of. For parents looking to save for your children, you actually have a junior ISA allowance of £9,000 to use before the tax year comes to an end and the new one begins on April the 6th. So this is a really good tool. I did a video previously on junior ISAs. If you haven't watched it, it's worthwhile going to watch it. But it's a perfect way to start to save or invest for your child for maximum impact, really, because especially if it's invested compound interest, but £9,000. So again, if you do have money lying around that you like to save or invest for your child, you've got up until the 5th of April to max out the allowance for this year before the new £9,000 allowance kicks in for the new tax year on April the 6th. Just left a meeting and I'm running late getting back to my car. I'm just hoping that parking attendants here in London aren't militant and I haven't got a ticket waiting for me. But anyway, I'm walking back there now. And in the meantime, let's talk about your personal savings allowance. So everyone gets a personal savings allowance, which is £1,000 if you are a basic rate taxpayer. It's £500 if you are a higher rate taxpayer paying 40%. And then unfortunately, if you're an additional rate taxpayer earning mega money, you get zero. Anyway, personal savings allowance is one where if you have money in a bank account, you can earn your first £1,000 or £500 without paying any tax on it. Now, Martin Lewis has spoken about the personal savings allowance quite a bit, and I have people ask me the question that, well, should they be bothering with the ISAs because they have a personal savings allowance? And frankly, interest rates at the moment aren't likely to get you to the point where you're going to breach your £1,000. Now, really, really important. I think Martin Lewis does a great job. He does. I'm not going to lie. He's a great guy, very, very knowledgeable. But I'm going to say this again, as I've said it before. He's not a financial planner, and he doesn't approach it from a financial planning point of view. And I think the important thing to remember here is if you are trying to dissuade yourself from putting money into an ISA and putting money into a savings account because you have a personal savings allowance, I think that's the wrong thing to do. They could change the personal savings allowance. Don't know whether they will or not, but it is a possibility. And if they do, it means that potentially you could be filling in self-assessment tax forms to justify what tax you need to pay or not pay based on your savings, right? Your interest you receive on your savings. So my thought is always, always, always start with your ISAs. It's £20,000. It is very, very unlikely that that is going to change and they're going to retroactively change it so you start paying tax on all of the money you have in your ISA. Really, really important. It is there to be used, but definitely not as a substitute to your ISA allowance. Use it in conjunction. Use it as an addition to your ISA allowance, with your ISA allowance being the first thing that you use, not your personal savings allowance. So that's my 2 cents. Maybe if you have another view, pop it in the comments. So the next one is capital gains allowance. So capital gains allowance we talk about a lot on the channel. If you're invested, if you have property, this is going to be really, really important for you. Now, currently, the capital gains allowance is £12,300, £12,300. But in the new tax year, starting on April the 6th, we're going to see that cut dramatically to £6,000. Now, this is something that Jeremy Hunt announced back in, I think it was October or something like that, right? And I don't think that most people thought that he was going to go that far with cuts. And the kicker is that it's going to be reduced to £6,000 this tax year that is going to start on April the 6th. The following tax year, we're going to see a further cut to £3,000. Now, what do you need to do? If you are thinking about selling a property, or you're thinking about cashing in an investment or taking some of your capital appreciation from your investment because you need access to some funds before the new tax year, you're better off doing it now before the reduction kicks in. How this works is you can earn £12,300 in capital appreciation, be that on a property sale or an investment portfolio, before you start to pay capital gains tax. So you really want to make sure that you're using the allowance before the new tax year starts in April the 6th, because again, if you don't use it, you are going to lose it. Dividend allowance. So dividend allowance currently is at £2,000. Now, this is also going to be reduced in the new tax year starting April the 6th from £2,000 to £1,000. And yes, you've guessed it, the following tax year after this new one that we're going to start in April the 6th is going to see it even cut further to £500. Now, how does this affect you? If you are a business owner taking money from your business as a dividend, if you've not done that, you want to start doing that right now. Use your £2,000 allowance. Also, if you are getting a dividend income, you also probably just want to track and make sure that you're offsetting or at least using your allowance on that front. These are the two big ones. So capital gains allowance and dividend allowance were the two big ones that were in the budget that I guess we've all got to deal with now as investors. The last one that I want to talk to you about is marriage allowance. This is going to be for all you lovebirds out there who are actually married. There is a benefit in being married, and within the marriage allowance, what you're able to do is you're able to transfer part of your personal allowance that we spoke about at the top of this video, $12,570, and transfer that to your partner. So how does this work? If you have a partner who is earning less than the £12,570 personal allowance before you start paying tax, you can transfer 1,260 of that to a partner who may be earning more. So you might have Mr., let's keep it gender swapped. You might have Mr. who may be earning, I don't know, £10,000 a year, and Mrs. might be high flyer earning £50,000 a year, right? She might be on that cusp of that 40%. What you're able to do is Mr. will transfer 1,260 pounds of his personal allowance to his wife, and that can lead to a savings in tax. Typically, it's around about £252 a year. Not to be stiffed at, all these small things add up. But those are your personal allowances that are worthwhile bearing in mind for the new tax year. I would encourage you to make sure that you're using them. You may need to seek some professional help. You might need to go speak to an accountant maybe, especially if you're in business, around dividend tax and also your capital gains allowance. But seek help if you need to. I hope you found this useful. It's been a very, very busy day. I'm going to finish my lunch before I jump back in the car. And guys, have a good one.